A century ago, nestled in the heart of Jamestown, New York, a dream took shape that would echo far beyond the borders of this small industrial city. Here, in historic Allen Park, the Goranson bandshell stands as a brick-and-mortar monument to two siblings, Ebba and Arthur Goranson, who built the Jamestown High School choral and band programs. Several miles away, their shared legacies live on in the sounds, the voices, and the harmonies that still soar through the halls of Jamestown High School.
This room is a special place. First day of school, the kids come in and I say, I just want you to take a second and I want you to look around at the banners and the trophies and the old uniforms and the pictures and the acclamations on the wall. I want you to really appreciate what you're sitting in right now in this space, because you're about to be part of this.
You look around this room and you see all of the photos dating back to the early 1960s. Walking into this room, there is this sense of pride that you feel. So to be able to hold up these traditions is extremely unique.
As we celebrate a century's worth of music and joy created by Jamestown High School students and faculty, you'll learn about what Arthur and Ebba Goranson started a century ago.
They were such strong personalities, and they were such influences, both in the school and in the community, that the support just grew. And I think because they were so outgoing and they were involved in so many things musically, that created the foundation of what we have today. I think that's very fair to say.
You'll also hear about the success of these groups and how they've not only sustained, but flourished.
The memories that are contained in this room and in the a cappella room are things you'll never ever forget. I never realized when I was in the midst of it how much that taught me, that I've taken to college, that I've taken to careers, that I've taken to raising my own family now.
Mostly, I think back to my experience as a student and the opportunities that I had and the education that I was given, that when I arrived at music school at Fredonia, I was well prepared, beyond many of the people that were going to college with me. I could read, I could match pitch, I could keep a steady beat, I could play my instrument, I could sing. These are all things that I gained in the Jamestown Public Schools.
A lot of students continue to reach out to me now, and the most rewarding part of it for me is how much it affected their lives. And these are not music teachers. These are doctors and accountants and lawyers and factory workers and everyday folks who say to me, that was the greatest experience of my life, and it shaped my life going forward.
I've considered myself to be very fortunate to be one of the first three conductors of a cappella choir. Following Ebba Goranson, a legend, and Bube, a legend. That was hard.
Music education at Jamestown High School dates back to 1837 and was a priority for the school district's first superintendent of schools, Samuel Gurley Love. Superintendent Love's wife, Louise M. Love, served as the first head of both the instrumental and vocal music departments. Instrumental music, then, was defined as instruction in the piano, melodeon, and guitar. The curriculum continued to develop as the Jamestown Academy evolved into the Jamestown Union School and Collegiate Institute, until the modern Jamestown High School was organized in 1887. While music education in the city schools had been formalized thanks to the work of individuals like Frederick E. Botsford, the arrival of Arthur and Ebba Goranson marked a new generation and the birth of an expectation of excellence.
There were several places in New York State where this was happening. In some cases, I think you can say it was the right people at the right place at the right time.
Arthur was 19 years old when his family moved to Jamestown in 1908. By then, he had graduated from the North Park Academy, a private high school in Chicago, and had a teaching certificate from the American Conservatory of Music in that same city. Ebba, age 17, went back to Chicago to continue her education at North Park College and the American Conservatory of Music. She lived and worked other places before eventually coming back to Jamestown a decade or so later. In separate churches in the community, each began distinguished careers as choir directors. Ebba was the first to be hired at Jamestown High School.
Actually, she came in 1920, and she had a girls' glee club and a boys' glee club. It wasn't until 1924 that she organized the first, what we call a cappella choir.
Arthur's public school career started a few years later.
Well, in 1923, school superintendent Milton J. Fletcher offered him an opportunity to introduce instrumental music to the Jamestown Public Schools. Instruction started in the junior high school level, where the foundation for the high school band was built. In one 18-year period, from 1930 to 1948, the JHS band performed in 20 sectional competitions, 10 New York State finals, 6 national, and 1 international contest, winning high honors in most of them.
By this time, music education was really taking off in the public schools all around New York State. Arthur Goranson sensed a need.
Among his more enduring legacies was as a founder of the New York State School Music Association. This group was formed in February 1932 in Syracuse under the name of the New York State School Band and Orchestra Association, and it was formed to improve the judging of music festivals for bands and orchestras in New York State.
With a new Jamestown High School just completed, NYSSMA's Western State Finals were held in the city in 1937. With Arthur and Ebba as co-chairs. There was a parade, and addressed by the mayor. It was a huge event that went on for several days.
There was a lot of things going on here in Jamestown at the time, and for these people to come in and to use their knowledge and just their plain hard work to make these things happen, it just grew, and there was a real hunger for it, I think. Superintendents of school districts said, what more can we give our students? What more can we do? And here it is.
Ebba Goranson, the younger of the siblings, was named supervisor of music for the Jamestown schools in 1924, the first female known to have had that level of responsibility anywhere in New York State. Arthur and Ebba were said to be deeply respectful of each other's abilities, but there was some friction.
A couple I know who are both in their 90s and who attended school here in the late 40s told stories about Arthur and Ebba having shouting matches in the high school right outside the a cappella room and not always getting along. The wife of this couple says, what do you expect? They were brother and sister.
Squabbles aside, the Goransons had, by the late 1940s, built solid and highly respected music programs. Arthur's bands and Ebba's choirs performed concerts of challenging works in school, in the community, at competitions, and on tour. Aunt Ebba, as she was known to her students, conducted the a cappella choir for the rest of her life. Arthur left his work as the Jamestown band director in 1948 to pursue other, mostly music-related interests. A few years later, the foundation for another part of the JHS band program was begun when Charles Jacobson, took up the baton in 1953.
Being a University of Michigan grad, he was the guy that really developed the whole marching band process, putting them on the field, getting them to do what is commonly known as patterns in motion. The band was a Big Ten high-stepping kind of machine.
That's Lou Deppas, a JHS graduate who would one day conduct the Jamestown band himself. Lou says the Jake stories are legendary.
He was a disciplinarian, a tactician, and God forbid you missed a formation or you didn't have your music ready to go or it wasn't memorized for halftime. There was heck to pay under Jake. Now, interestingly enough, he was beloved by the students. Feared, but beloved.
Under Jake's direction, the JHS Marching Band had many notable performances. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City, the Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C., and Buffalo Bills and Cleveland Browns halftime shows. The concert band was equally successful, earning a trip to the prestigious Midwest Band Clinic in Chicago in 1962. At the end of that decade, Charles Jacobson put down his baton and became principal of Jamestown High School. Thereafter, several band directors came and left.
As you look at the list of band directors through the years, and kind of the periods of time where you had the Arthur Goransons and the Charles Jacobsons, there was a time when things start to wane a bit under the direction of the current band director at that time. And there was still a lot of talent, but they weren't really getting the instruction. Then comes Lou Deppas, who says, well, I'm going to fix that. And from the Valley comes the Ascension.
After graduating from JHS in 1974, Lou Deppas took a music degree from Fredonia and was working to build a studio musician career in New York City with only modest success. So he came back to Jamestown, first as a part-time elementary-level music teacher, then director of bands at Washington Junior High School. Lou was just a few months into that job when the JHS band director at the time abruptly resigned. So, 6 years after graduating from the JHS band, Lou Deppas was charged with directing and rebuilding the program.
We hustled. we made speeches. We got the community excited. We got kids excited. I picked up a roster of all of the kids that had quit and called every single one of them and their parents, begged them to come back. Some of them did. The first year was very, very difficult. Just trying to piece it together and keep it going, getting kids excited. I also had a trip that year. The concert band went to Wildwood, New Jersey for a competition, and we won the competition, which really catapulted us moving forward.
The Jamestown High School band became a hot commodity. Lou Deppas says he was the right guy at the right place at the right time.
We went to the Rose Bowl in 85, 86. Lucille Ball donated thousands of dollars to the band. Jess President, who was a state senator, got a $10,000 state senate grant for us to go. Over 350 businesses donated to the band. And that just kept going. It just fed on itself.
A bitter wind chill here on the west side of Manhattan tonight, some 5 degrees below zero.
Great night in New York, huh?
But that didn't dampen the spirits of the 150 members of the Jamestown High School Red Raider Marching Band.
In 1989, the Jamestown Marching Band was in New York City and made an appearance on the David Letterman Show.
Know what it's time for now?
Yes, I do.
Viewer mail. Let's hear the viewer mail theme, please. May I hear? Will you play for me?
Not only
Can
do
we
I have
listen
the viewer
to?
mail
Is
theme,
it ready? Play it, please, now.
Something very special tonight. Some special musical guests to help me out with Henry Mancini's fabulous viewer mail theme. Here they are from Jamestown High School in Jamestown, New York. It's the Red Raiders Marching Band.
They would go back a second time in 1992. Maria Pope was one of Letterman's producers.
I'm sitting in the band room here one day, and the phone rings, and I answer it like I always do. Band room, hey, Lou, it's Dave. Hang on, Maria wants to talk to you. And you could hear the voice, Dave Letterman calling me in the band room. So Maria Pope gets on the thing, and she says, do you think you guys can do a marching band version of Happy Birthday? Absolutely. we can do whatever you people want us to do. Dave wants to pay tribute to Meg, that lady across the way that he talks to through the window. He wants you to maybe march down on 49th Street and play Happy Birthday, and it would be great if you could spell out Meg with the band. And so we get there, and we are standing on 49th Street right outside the entrance to NBC. And there's a union that's on strike. And they are out there with bullhorns screaming and yelling. Now all of a sudden, here come these 60-something kids in a marching band uniform. And there's all these mounted police on horseback. And they've shut down 49th Street. And I'm on a walkie-talkie with Maria Pope upstairs. We have to run out, get in formation, cue us, because this is for TV. And all these people are just screaming their heads off. And the poor Maria Pope goes, Lou, you got to pull this off or I'm going to get fired.
Oh, here it goes now.
For 20 years or so, it was kind of a dynasty. I mean, we really worked hard, and we went head to head with those Syracuse marching bands, and going to NISMA and having a band that can play from little old Jamestown, New York, play up against Williamsville and Amherst and the Buffalo area schools, and playing repertoire like Symphonic Dance No. 3 and La Fiesta Mexicana, and I could go on and on and on. But nobody played a Sousa March like we did in those years, and the music of John Williams. It was a thrill to hear the band. Band concerts were big deals. After Lou left, we had a hard time replacing him. So we went through a series of different band directors, and so here that kind of wanes once again. And one particular band director wasn't working out so well, and the drum major at the time struggled trying to keep the pieces together, and that drum major was Meghan Murray. So she goes away to college and comes back and says, I'm going to fix this. And so now we have this ascension once again.
Early in her student career, Meghan Murray had a mentor.
I think back to the teachers that I had who really made a difference for me. My band director when I was in high school here, Jamie Sigler, because she was the first female band director that I had ever had. She had gone to West Virginia. She played clarinet, and she was really the one who made me see myself in that position.
Upon graduation from JHS in 2001, Meghan pursued a degree in music education.
I can remember meeting new people from all over the country when I went to college at West Virginia University, and then realizing quickly how special the experiences that I had were in Jamestown compared to some of the ones that they experienced in their high schools. So I developed a really great appreciation for what I had here at Jamestown High School.
Meantime, back home in Jamestown, several band directors had come and gone.
It was a little shaky when I was hired here along with my colleague Mark Lench. We got hired at the same time. But I really think that the core of what Jamestown music offered was still there. For me, it's excellence. It's not just how you play, it's how you carry yourself, it's how you walk through the door, it's how you put your instrument away, organize your music folder, it's everything.
Meghan Murray got help from people like Gary Kindberg. He was a drum major for the JHS marching band in the 1980s and also spent 4 summers with the famed Cavaliers Drum and Bugle Corps, where he says he earned a master's degree in the marching arts.
When my daughter came to the high school in 9th grade, I asked her if she'd mind if I volunteered to help out a little bit. And from that, it's been 17 years of really wonderful experiences and 3 state championships.
Gary works with the students mostly on the drill, the marching part of marching band, a labor of love with the sweetest payoffs.
It's teaching them a new language, the coordinate system that we use. In 3 months, they have to be very fluent in that language. It's challenging to the kids, but you can see as they start to gain traction, literally and figuratively, with it, that they start to get really excited. You see the light bulb go off.
Under Meghan's leadership, the marching band won state championships in 2014, 2015, and 2018.
She inherited a bit of a mess and built it to greatness. And the organization as a whole is wonderful because she's a great boss. She put together a great team of instructors.
In working with her students, Meghan has a philosophy for cultivating growth and excellence in the band program.
I have a thing right now with my students where I say it's not cool to not be good at something, but it's okay if you make a mistake. I want them to want to succeed. I want them to excel. And you can't do that without making mistakes. They say it takes a village, and that is so true. And I could not do any of what we have done over the last 18 years if it weren't for my marching band staff and the people who, are so dedicated to the program and dedicated to the kids that don't have to be.
Meghan Murray continues to conduct the symphonic and concert bands. The marching band is now under the direction of Mark Lench. Over the first 100 years, the Jamestown High School bands have had 15 principal directors. The choir program only 5, beginning with the choir's founder, Ebba Goranson.
Obviously, she was very driven. She was very much interested in the betterment of music in the area. based on her background, and probably her parents' background traced all the way back to their musical educations in Sweden, just to say, let's create something that's quality and let's support it. And I think that's what they did. Ebba never married, and perhaps that was part of it. She put energy she might have put into a family, into working with music, and so all her students and other musicians became her family.
A cappella director emeritus Brian Bogey recalls a story from the 1930 JHS yearbook.
125 boys and girls gathered in the afternoon for a cappella. They were working hard, and all of a sudden, Ebba says, "Now, will all the people chewing gum please throw it out in the wastebasket? Put it behind an ear or something. Just do it and get rid of it." And so 3 or 4 people walked across the floor shamefully to their seats. And then the rehearsal continued. She was a taskmaster. She was wonderful.
One of the most poignant moments in a cappella's history came just a few days before the 1957 Vespers season was to begin. At the age of 66, Ebba Goranson died.
She died December 10th, 1957, following several months of failing health, leaving behind a bereaved community. A large funeral was held at Zion Covenant Church, with many of her favorite hymns being played.
3 pastors from the community spoke at her funeral, including the Reverend Dr. Paul A. Westerberg.
When she was on her deathbed at the General Hospital, she said to Dr. Westerberg, who preached, and he was the preacher that when I came to First Lutheran in 1971, and he did her funeral sermon. Before she died, she told Dr. Westerberg, "I know I'll never hear the a cappella choir again, but the next choir I hear will be the Heavenly Choir."
While deeply saddened at their director's death, the members of the a cappella choir sang on at Ebba's funeral, at Vespers, and all the other scheduled performances that December under the direction of Lucille Lown, a talented musician and director in her own right. She was a close friend of Ebba Goranson's and had served as her assistant. Lucille Lown continued to conduct the JHS choral program through the 1957-58 school year, but did not want to remain in the post after that. The search for the second principal director was a major effort that settled on Donald Bube, who came to the choir in the fall of 1958. In the mid-1960s, Brian Bogey was one of his students.
And he had a wonderful program back then. He really was, he came from college. He taught at 10 years at Ithaca College before coming to Jamestown. And he was one of 50 applicants that tried out to be the director of a cappella choir. And he told me, he came in for the audition, and the whole Board of Education was there, the whole administration, and the full a cappella choir. And he had to do a rehearsal before them, and he was the candidate that won.
Having 3 directors, Ebba Goranson, Lucille Lown, and Don Bube, in the matter of a couple of years, 1957 to 1958, was unsettling for the members of the a cappella choir. Over time, Don Bube's emotion, humanity, tears won the choir over.
I remember one time we went into the class and we were listening to the wonderful basso from Germany, Dietrich Fiskau, and had the whole choir quiet. And then he broke out in tears. He says, "You can't help but get emotional about music like this." And he says, "Never be afraid of your emotions. That's what makes you human, separates you from the animals." Tears.
In his final year as director of the a cappella, one of Don Bube's students was Norm Lydell.
I loved the man. And I remember as I talked to the people that I went to high school with that were in that choir, for just that 1 year, we all loved Don Bube. As a director, he knew what he wanted. He knew how to get what he wanted. You just followed him. He knew what he wanted in his head, and it was okay. It wasn't about technique. It was about do what he's telling you to do, and it worked. And then Brian Bogey was the same way. It is not just about a 4/4 beat pattern. It was all about you, don't breathe, that kind of stuff. Those are not gestures they teach you in college. And Don had this voice, a deep bass voice that could project. He would look at the men's section and be like, "Yeah," and he would give us this big yaw or something like that. We're like, "Oh, that's how a man uses his voice. That's what we'll do." And I just remember little light lessons like that from Don.
How do you replace a legendary director of the a cappella choir? That was the challenge when Ebba Goranson died, and again when Don Bube retired in 1981. Jim McElrath was the principal of Jamestown High School at that time. Brian Bogey had established himself as choral director at Jefferson Junior High School.
I loved the junior high school. I just loved they're so bad, but so good. They really are. Well, at any rate, then Don retired, and they asked me to do it. Russell Johnson was the head of the department, and I told him, I says, "No, who wants to follow a legend?" So I suggested someone, and this guy had credentials. He had taken them to NISMA festivals, and they got superior ratings.
The new director came, but only for a year. In that time, Bogey's choirs at the junior high school level achieved higher NISMA ratings than the high school choir.
So that put me in a very strange spot. So then McElrath, who was the principal here, and Russell Johnson, involuntarily transferred me. I had no choice in the matter. And I didn't know if my sense of humor, if it would go over in high school. It was fit for junior high, kind of a simple mentality. And but it seemed to work pretty good.
When you came down, you and I talked about tradition. And you, having graduated from Jamestown High School, understood tradition. The person before you didn't understand tradition. And I know, and you know, just how important tradition is, not only to the school and to the students, but also to the community. Tradition never graduates, and you made this a first-class operation.
As with the band, the JHS choir had always taken trips to perform, from the beginning with Ebba Goranson and in the years of Don Bube. But it was under Brian Bogey that the a cappella took its travels to the next level, singing in sacred spaces across the globe.
And back then, I didn't do that much with the churches. But then I'm a church organist and choir master. And I thought, well, I've got connections all over.
Bogey took the a cappella choir to New York City St. Patrick's Cathedral and the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, as well as Chicago's St. James Episcopal Cathedral, St. Michael's Cathedral in Toronto, the National Shrine Cathedral in Washington, and took extensive tours of Italy, Germany, Austria, and Great Britain.
In Austria, we sang at St. Stephen's Cathedral, the home of the Vienna Boys Choir, and we wanted an audience with them, but they were in America, so we sang for the High Mass in place. And so then we got the title of Choir of Cathedrals, is what they called us.
When Brian Bogey retired as full-time director of the JHS choral program in 2003, his work was applauded by his predecessor.
I'm certainly very proud of you and very pleased to have been a part of your background in coming into this. You've done a terrific job as a teacher and as a person.
Brian Bogey continues to be active with the a cappella choir, as organist for the annual Vespers services, and as a guest conductor. After his retirement, the search for the next conductor of the choir was again monumental. At that time, Norm Lydell had moved from being a music educator at JHS to the administration, as the coordinator of fine and performing arts.
It was my responsibility to replace Brian Bogey and find that individual. We were kind of coming up with very few candidates, unfortunately. And the superintendent, Ray Fasciano, had gone to Brian to say, who could do this? And Brian said, there's only one that we have, and that would be Norm Lydell. Well, Norm Lydell is an administrator. He's no longer a teacher. So I could no longer be part of the hiring process. I was a candidate. And right here in this esteemed a cappella room was my audition.
And so, in 2003, Norm Lydell became the fourth director of the a cappella choir.
I made no secret of the fact that I was not Brian Bogey. Nobody wanted to follow down Bube. Brian didn't. That's why he didn't right away. Nobody wanted to follow Brian Bogey. These are titans. And of course, Ebba Goranson. But I knew that if I stepped in and I was honest about it, that I thought I could win the favor of the kids and get them to trust me, that I knew musically what needed to be done.
Under Norm Lydell, the a cappella choir continued its successful series of tours to Disney World in Orlando, Florida in 2014, Washington, D.C. in 2016, and a triumphant return to Disney World in December of 2019, along with the JHS Band, for a series of year-end performances, including the Candlelight Processional at Epcot Center. Lydell retired from the a cappella choir's directorship after the spring semester of 2020. As a director emeritus, he too remains active with the choir as a guest conductor and advisor to the current director, Lauren Scharf. Originally from Ellicottville, Lauren became well known to the Jamestown music community as a teacher of choral music at Purcell Middle School beginning in 2014, and as director of the annual JHS musical starting in 2017. She became the a cappella director in the fall of 2020, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
So stepping into this role, it was rather intimidating. Being the fifth director of this choir, there were some very large shoes to fill. That said, this program was so well run and designed that stepping into this position, the groundwork had already been done. So when I came into this program, I was able to really just focus on continuing to meet those high expectations and continue to work within that framework that was laid out before me.
Lauren feels blessed to have two of the four previous directors of a cappella close by.
The past few years, Brian has come in and helped direct Baccalaureate and has gotten in front of the choir and worked with the choir, and the kids are so receptive to that. They love when Mr. Bogey comes in and when Mr. Lydell pops in. They get so excited because they're like superheroes to these guys, you know.
Over the last century, many traditions have become entrenched in the Jamestown High School music programs. The marching band's presence is known throughout the greater Jamestown community as leading the annual Memorial Day and Christmas parades and serving as a pep band and halftime entertainment at JHS football games. Each year, a brass choir plays the national anthem and taps at 3rd and Main on Veterans Day. As for the a cappella choir, the Men of Tomorrow does an annual performance of Nothing Like a Dame at the spring concert. The select group, the Madrigal Singers, is a staple across the community throughout the holiday season, thanks to numerous run-out concerts in December. The choir and band also combine for the annual commencement exercises at Chautauqua Institution to perform Wilhowski's Battle Hymn of the Republic. Early in his tenure, Lou Deppas also helped begin another tradition.
I always liked Superman, loved the movie, loved the music. John Williams, musical hero of mine. And so I vowed to myself, if I ever became the high school band director, that I would drag that piece out of the drawer and do it. And ironically, became the high school band director a few months later. And that was the opener of the first concert that I conducted with Superman. And of course, it was extremely well received. So for the second concert in May, it was the encore, and now people are just going crazy. And so it just perpetuated itself. So in every concert for the next 20 years, it was the encore. And it kind of became, you know, an entity unto itself in the community.
One tradition that has become deeply enshrined and highly revered takes place in the late afternoon on two separate days in December at Jamestown's First Lutheran Church. The full a cappella choir, wearing red and white robes, gathers at the back of the church. Each singer lights a small electric candle. The organist, Brian Bogey in the present era, plays the first notes of the Kyrie, and the choir begins to process into the candlelit church. The annual Vespers service has begun.
To so many people, it's one of the most memorable moments of their high school career. So knowing that it's the most memorable moment of many of these students' lives, I feel like that's very, very special.
The Vespers tradition was begun by the choir's founder, Ebba Goranson.
She was deeply spiritual, and I think that's why she brought it out of the high school, so that they could do sacred, serious sacred music. And people say, I have colleagues in Rochester and California and all Florida. They say, Bogey, how do you dare do that music? But I says, look at our NISMA manual. If you're doing level 6 and 5 music, which we did, 90% of it is sacred. From the Messiah or the Bach Magnificat or whatever. And so it's sanctioned by the state.
The hour-long Vespers program varies from year to year and includes both sacred and popular holiday tunes, but it always begins with the Kyrie.
Yeah, Ebba Goranson, I think, wrote the Kyrie. I looked through all the files years ago, and I found an Alleluia Kyrie by Harvey Gall. And it was different from this one, but it did have this melody, and I think she transcribed that big anthem to this.
I guess the tradition has been now for several years that when you come to Vespers and you are an alumnus, that you are handed a candle so that you turn your candle on, and then the choir can see. They're told what's going on, but as they process, they can see out of the corner of their eye, they can see a little bit of light here and a little bit of light there, and they can hear their song being sung. And then when you get up there and you turn around as an a cappella member and you see all of these candles lit, then you know, these are people that have done what we're doing right now. That's neat.
Every 5 years, all the alumni members of the a cappella choir are invited back to sing several selections with the current a cappella. Gary Kindberg is always there.
I've had 4 children go through the program, and they'll all be there, and my cousins will be there, and my friends will be there over the course of, you'll have 80-year-olds singing next to 17-year-olds, and every age in between. Where does that ever happen? It is a wonderful accomplishment that the traditions have been maintained, and I hope that they are maintained for a long time. I hope that the student of today understands how important a cappella choir is to our community locally, but also in the lives of all those who've moved away.
Vespers always ends with the choir members lighting their electric candles and recessing down the main aisle and eventually surrounding the audience, all while singing a particular arrangement of Silent Night.
Yeah, it was Robert Wetzler who wrote that particular arrangement. It's a beautiful arrangement, and it's such a solemn piece. At the end, you would think that you'd end up with the Hallelujah chorus, but no, this beautiful thing in candlelight. And that's so special,
I think the first time the kids sing a piece such as Silent Night, as they're surrounding the entire audience in the sanctuary, you're getting this really, really beautiful sound that is not able to be replicated in our high school auditorium. So preserving the ability to perform in a space where the acoustics are as much of the performance as the actual performance, I think is really special. And again, something that you don't see in every high school choir performance.
As we celebrate the centennial of the JHS a cappella choir and band programs, time may pass, but several constants persevere. These are more than just music groups. They are formative experiences that have shaped generations of students.
A centennial celebration is a great time to look back and study how we got here and what worked and what continues to work. And I think in doing that will help us looking for the next 20 years, hopefully next 100 years. I see great things happening and maybe some different things, but certainly still great things. And that tradition and level of excellence will absolutely remain the same.
In this day and age, I think students need the structure that those organizations provide, the discipline that they provide, the joy of performance, the joy of excellence.
It takes a lot of dedication and support to keep this going. We must remember all that it took to get it started and sincerely hope that people will step up and build on what we have accomplished in this small city and how many lives it has impacted over this past century, and to keep it going so that it will.
I couldn't be prouder of the fact that it is still today something to be proud of. I think Meghan, Murray, and Mark Lynch have done a wonderful job. I think the middle school directors that we have here now are also top-notch. And it's not easy. It's hard work. It's a labor of love.
The sense of honor and continuity from one generation of music educators to the next connects the past with the present.
It's really thrilling, I think, even today. I mean, it's been so many years now, since 1963, that I was associated with a high school. And what an honor to be hanging up. I didn't know I would be hung as an effigy when I retired, but I'm there.
Few, if any, schools have such a long-standing commitment to the study and performance of masterworks, woven into the fabric of community life year after year.
It does make us special. It really does. I don't know of any other school district. I'll speak specifically to the a cappella program. We have 100 years of Vespers, sacred music that is performed not for the religious connotation, but for the study of masterworks. The Magnificats, the Vivaldi Gloria, the Handel's Messiah, and so forth. The different languages we've been able to explore, the songs of Hanukkah that we've been able to do. And to be able to do that in wearing ecumenical robes and doing this in the beautiful First Lutheran Church of Jamestown is just a tremendous thing that nobody else has. And I know our community has supported that through the years. I hope they continue to pray that they continue to do so.
My goal is to continue to maintain and hopefully exceed the expectations that the choir has laid out, while at the same time putting my own stamp on it, evolving the choir without taking away what the people love the most about this choir. So really making sure that what the choir is doing is fitting their needs and fitting into their personalities and their lives and their experiences outside of the choir. So really just making sure that we're producing and performing high quality music while maintaining traditions that span 100 years, which is incredible.